Introducing commandlets, snap-ins, aliases, and help. In this nugget, we're going to focus on how to really learn how to use PowerShell. In other words, what are some of the ways PowerShell gives you to make learning PowerShell possible and easier on your own? We'll start by looking at aliases and commandlets, and I'll show you how to find all the different commands in PowerShell. Just run get command. I'll show you how to ask Windows PowerShell for help, and we'll learn how to read that help so you can be more effective and really understand and figure out all of your capabilities inside the shell. We'll look at parameter prompting for when you forget to do something so that you know what it's doing when this occurs to you. And we will cover everything you could ever want to know about aliases, how to create them, how to share them with other people. We'll move on to talk about PS snap-ins, which is the way that PowerShell extends its functionality. And we'll finish by talking about custom consoles and profiles, how they can be used to sort of customize your Windows PowerShell experience to give you whatever functionality you may need for any given task. Let's start with aliases and commandlets, because I bet you didn't realize you've been using these things all along. For example, when I run something like cd \, that's an alias. When I run dir, that's an alias. When I run ls, you guessed it, that's an alias. The actual command is called getChildItem. And you can see why you might want an alias or a nickname. Typing getChildItem over and over and over gets to be a little bit tiring. Dir is much quicker, ls is even a little bit quicker, but sort of the practical point of this is that they all have the same effect as running the actual command, or in Windows PowerShell terminology, it's called a commandlet. You can kind of think of them as command line utilities, but they only exist and can be used within PowerShell itself. Just like the command line utilities you're probably used to using, these things use parameters like -recurs or -filter star.dll. In fact, this is a very consistent pattern with PowerShell parameters. Parameter names always start with a dash, then the parameter name. If the parameter doesn't take a value, if it's just a switch like recurs, then that's all you need. If it takes a value, then it's dash parameter name space parameter value. Dash name space value. Go ahead. It's going to sound corny, but say it with me. Dash name space value. The reason it's important to remember that is because you'll never again wonder, well, was I supposed to type a slash and is there a colon in here? Nope, it's dash name space value. So just hitting enter has the effect that you might expect. It's going to run through all the folders on my computer and show me all the DLL files because that's the command I ran. Again, the alias dir or ls just stands in for the commandlet name. The alias does not modify any of the parameters that the commandlet uses. That's why when you type dir /s, it doesn't work. The dir alias is only standing in for getChildItem, and /s isn't legal for getChildItem. The correct syntax is getChildItem -recurs. I can replace getChildItem with dir or ls, but it doesn't change any of the parameters that I'm actually using there. So there's a couple of other PowerShell commands you've already seen. I showed you get event log. Let's get event log from the security log and just ask for the newest 20. You've seen set execution policy, and we set ours to remote signed. You've seen get execution policy. I even told you about set authenticode signature, which is how you apply a digital signature to a script. Do you notice anything interesting about these commandlet names? They always start with a verb, like get or set, then a dash, and then a singular noun, get event log, get child item, get execution policy, set execution policy. Here's another command you might find interesting. I showed you earlier PS, which gets a list of processes. Well, PS is actually just an alias for get process. Verb, singular noun. It's not get processes, it's just get process, even though it's really getting more than one process. Same with get event log. Even though I'm asking it to get 20 event log entries from the security event log, the noun portion of the command name is still get event log, not get event logs. So it's always verb dash singular noun. That consistent naming syntax is really important because you can probably start to guess at what other commandlet names are. How would you get a list of services? It might be get service. How would you get a WMI object? It might be get WMI object. How would you get an Active Directory user? Maybe it's get AD user. Your guesses might not always be right, but 90% of the time they probably will be because of that consistent naming pattern. How would you get an Exchange mailbox? Well, maybe it's get mailbox if you have Exchange installed. So just understanding that naming pattern and being willing to guess at what commands might be available is one of the ways that PowerShell lets you discover what functionality and capabilities the shell itself actually has. Another way that Windows PowerShell allows you to well, not guess, but to discover the functionality it has is get command. That's a PowerShell commandlet, get-command, and it's going to retrieve every single command that the shell knows about, including any additional commands that have been snapped in, something we'll talk about later in this nugget. Look at all this great functionality. Start service, suspend service, update format data, write error, select string, remove PS drive, new alias. Wait a minute, if we wanted to create a new alias, I wonder what the command would be. Well, hang on to that thought. Get command has a few different ways you can use it. You can say get command by itself, as I just did, to get a list of all commands. It'll take wildcards too. Let's see everything that we can do with a service. Get command star service star. Wow, it's not only showing me commandlet, it's actually showing me external applications that have the word service in them. These are only things that are included in the Windows search path, and it does this just in case there's something useful in here that, like services.exe, which might be useful. But I've also got commandlets like set service, start service, stop service, suspend service, resume service, restart service, lots of good stuff. Let's take another approach to this. Get command, oh, and by the way, if you think get command is a little bit tedious to type, it has an alias, GCM, get command. Let's just get the commands that have a noun of service. Oh, that's a nice, concise list. See, I can get a service, I can create a new service. I wonder what other new things I can create. Let's see a list of commands that use the verb new. I can create new aliases, new items, new PS drives, new variables, new services. Remember in the very first nugget, I explained how the benefit of a graphical user interface, such as Active Directory users and computers, the benefit of this type of interface is that you can sort of bop around in the interface on your own, right-click things. You can discover what your capabilities are without actually doing anything, just by sort of browsing around. Well, the command line interface doesn't really have right-clicking and menus and icons, but get command does allow you to browse around and see what functionality you have. Are you wondering what I can do with event logs in Windows PowerShell? GCM event. Get event log is the only built-in commandlet. Good to know. Maybe I was hoping for a commandlet that would let me create new event log entries, and I'm not seeing it here. So I don't have to spend a lot of time on Google searching around to find something that actually doesn't exist. Just by using get command, I can discover the shell's functionality for myself. Makes it really easy to start exploring what the shell can do, and it's something that I want to keep in mind because we're going to use that to really explore the functionality through the rest of this entire series of nuggets. PowerShell's creators were really concerned about giving you a lot of ways to find out what the shell can do. Now, we've seen a couple already. One of them was get command. Here's another one I guarantee you'll like. I've used this dir command quite a bit, and I've added parameters like recurs, and I've added parameters like filter. And you may have wondered where I found those. Probably I've got a big reference book, 1,500 pages, laying right next to my computer. No, I don't. All of that is built right into Windows PowerShell. Just type help, and then the command that you'd like help with. PowerShell shows me that the actual commandlet name is getChildItem. Remember that dir is just an alias. It's going to tell me everything I need to know about this command. Well, maybe not on this screen. See, this screen, the default help screen, is intended to be concise. Ideally, to fit a good amount of information, a lot of reminders, a description, what the syntax looks like, to fit it all on a single screen. Maybe what I wanted to see are some examples of this in use. I'll ask for examples. And I get a few examples. Maybe I want to see more detailed help. Now I get a description of what each and every parameter is actually for, as well as some examples. Well, how much more can there possibly be? Let's ask for the full help. Now I get lots of information about every parameter, some extra notes, lots of examples, pages and pages of information. The help command is not only designed to help you understand how to use a particular commandlet, it's also designed to help you learn what other commands are available and to learn about built-in concepts for the shell. Type help by itself. This is a lot of information. There's help for all these aliases. There's help for all these commandlets. There's help for different providers. And then there's just these help files about aliases, about associative array, about redirection. Let's see what's in there. Help, about, redirection. This is going to explain how I can redirect information from a command to a text file with lots of detail, a couple of examples. So just by typing help, you can see that there's a lot of available help. Now let me show you a little trick for making this help a little bit easier to find and discover. Let me close the shell. I'm going to go to a website called scriptinganswers.com. And there's a tools zone here that you can go to. And there is a Windows PowerShell help tool. So let's download that and run the setup. Go ahead and run it. We'll close this browser window in the background. It's a quick install, doesn't take very long. It's a free tool. You notice you don't even have to register or anything for it. And there it is right on the desktop. If I run this, it's actually going to show me all the different help topics in this nice little tree view. It starts by showing me all the commandlets. And it actually pulls this information right out of the shell every single time you open the help tool. So if you've added other capabilities like Exchange Server or System Center or something else into the shell, then you're going to find all of their commandlet help in here too. And you also get all these about topics. And when you click on a help topic, it shows it to you right over here. You can read the entire thing. If it's a commandlet, it actually breaks down the syntax into the upper pane and then the complete help into the lower pane. So this is a great way to discover what Windows PowerShell can do for you. Once you're looking at that help, though, it's really useful to know what you're looking at. Here, let's pull back Windows PowerShell and ask for help on dir. Let's really break this syntax down. I see that the first parameter is called path, and because it is encased in these square brackets, I know that the parameter is optional. I can run this command without providing that parameter. If I do decide to use this parameter, the actual parameter name, -path, is also in square brackets. So I don't need to type -path. I've got a filter parameter, which is also optional, and if I choose to use it, the -filter portion, the name, is optional. There's an include parameter. If I want to use this one, I have to specify the -include. Notice that the name is not included in square brackets. That means if I want to use this parameter, I need to specify a name. Let's get a little bit more detailed help on dir. This is telling me that the path specifies a path to one or more locations and that wildcards are permitted. The default location is the current directory. So if I don't include the path parameter, it's going to get a directory of the current directory. That's interesting. Let's ask for more full help. Let's look at that path parameter again. It tells me that the path parameter is not required. If I don't specify the path parameter name, but I do want to specify a value, the value has to be in the first position. So let's take a look at some more. The filter parameter is not required, and if I do use it, I don't have to type -filter, provided the value is in the second position. So here's sort of a full way to use dir. Dir path c program files -filter star.dll. But I don't really have to include the -filter or the -path, so long as the parameters appear in the correct order. And I didn't have any DLL files in program files. Remember, I didn't tell it to recurse. There's lots more. So here's that command again. There's kind of another neat little trick about Windows PowerShell. I like putting the parameter names in sometimes because it kind of makes it a little bit more visually obvious what's going on. I don't have to remember, okay, the first one is this and the second one is that. But I don't always want to type the whole thing. Well, you only have to type enough of the parameter name so that PowerShell can tell which parameter you're talking about. There's no other parameter that starts with -pa. There's no other parameter that starts with -fi, and there's no other parameter that starts with -r. So that right there might not be really easy to read, but it's enough for PowerShell to run the command. So being able to read the help file, let's take a look at another one, help cd-full. Turns out the commandlet name is set location, and I can either provide a path or a literal path. If I provide a path, I don't have to type -path, so long as the value is in the first position. If I want to provide a literal path, though, I do have to provide it. So being able to read the help can definitely make using Windows PowerShell a little easier. I'll show you another reason to read the help. Let's ask for help on another command I ran, get event log. This tells me that I can specify a log name. I can ask for just the newest event entries. Or, look, here's another use, -list. Let's try that. Get event log -list. This is going to list all the logs that are available on the computer, along with their settings, how many days they're retaining data, what their overflow action is, their maximum size, and so forth. I would never have known about this capability unless someone told me, or if I was reading the help files. So let me give you a little tip to becoming a PowerShell guru. Windows PowerShell comes with about 130 built-in commands. Use something like the Windows PowerShell help tool, and you know those page-a-day calendars? Maybe you have one for the Far Side or for Dilbert. Make this your page-a-day calendar. Just read the help synopsis and some of the parameters for a different command every day. You don't have to memorize it, but when the time comes that you need this functionality, you'll remember that you saw it somewhere, and you'll be able to go back in and read up and remind yourself. Knowing that you have the capability is really half the battle. Going in and finding it and actually looking up the syntax, that's easy. You can do that with the help command or a tool like this one. So just read a different one each day. In about 130 days, you'll know everything that PowerShell can do built in. PowerShell does not like to be a hard taskmaster. You don't necessarily have to remember which parameters are required, which ones aren't required. PowerShell is willing to help out a little bit. Here, let's take a look at that help get event log again. And I can see that the log name parameter is required. I don't have to specify the parameter name, that's in square brackets, but I at least have to give it a log name. Well, what if I don't? What if I just say get event log? PowerShell has something called parameter prompting. So it's telling me that the commandlet get event log at position 1 needs a value for the log name parameter. Oh, okay. I'll just type security and hit enter. And then it's going to run through all the events in the security log. So that parameter prompting is another way that PowerShell helps you to discover the right thing to do. If you don't know what a command will do, and the name of the command isn't something scary like delete everything, just try running the command by itself. If it doesn't do anything, it'll tell you what it needs. Oh man, I don't know what values to supply for the following parameters. Okay, hit Control-C. That'll abort the command, and now you can ask for help and see if there's anything in here. Oh look, dash list. Maybe that lists the entries. Let's ask for some more help on that. Yeah, dash list returns a list of all event logs rather than the entries from a specific log. Oh, that's how I could find out what values are legal for the log name. So if you just kind of let PowerShell walk you through it, and if you're always willing to read the help, then you'll be fine. Windows PowerShell really will help get you there. Okay, enough of running these long command names. Let's get back to aliases. I want to create a new alias. In fact, I think that having to type dir or even ls is way too many characters. Typing ls is about 50% more characters than I'm willing to type. I want to create a new alias called d, and I want it to point to get child item, which is the commandlet that sits underneath the dir command. There, I did it. Now if I just type d, I have the shortest way ever to get a directory listing. Here's kind of a trick with Windows PowerShell though. Let me close the shell and then immediately go back and reopen it and type d. See, every time you create a new alias, it goes away as soon as you close the shell. Man, so what the heck good is that? Well, here's kind of a couple of tricks. Let's create a new alias. Again, d, set it to get child item. And let's create another one. New alias gel for get event log. So now I can type gel security. That kind of sounds funny, gel security. If I want to see the aliases in the system, I can run get alias, and there's my new d and gel at the end. If you remember though, Windows PowerShell has an alias drive, so I can just get a dir of the alias drive to get the same thing. There's a couple other interesting commands. Export alias to aliases. Let's just call it XML. It's probably an XML file. I don't know for sure, and the file name extension honestly doesn't matter. Okay, so that exported all those. Let's make sure it created a file. Yep, there it is, aliases.xml, 4,500 bytes, nice and small. And now let's go into the alias drive. Now, how would I delete an item from this drive? Well, how would I delete an item from any drive? Del, D, del, gel. Get a directory listing, they're gone. Typing D does no good. Type gel does no good, so I definitely deleted them. Let's close the shell, reopen it so we're starting from scratch. Import alias, aliases.xml. Oops, that's not what I named it. It was out in my root folder. Import alias, aliases.xml. Now I got a lot of errors here, and it said that the alias is not allowed because an alias with the name CLS already exists. In other words, when I exported all of those aliases, it exported all of the aliases, including the built-in ones. When I imported it just now, it tried to re-import all of the aliases. So obviously, since there was already an alias RP, it couldn't import it. But that's okay. It tried each one in turn, and so it would have eventually gotten to my D and my gel. So even though I got all these error messages, it still did what I wanted to. It imported my custom aliases. Okay, how can I have it do it automatically every single time I load the shell? Well, that's what that profile is for. If I go into my Documents folder, create the Windows PowerShell folder, and in there, create a text file called profile.ps1, and edit that, I can have it import all those aliases every single time the shell loads. Now maybe I want to put that XML file out on a UNC so that both myself and several other administrators that I work with can all share the same set of custom aliases. Or maybe I don't want to do that at all. Maybe I just want to say new alias D for get child item and new alias gel for get event log. And just run those two commands every time I load the shell. Let's try it. We'll close the shell, wipes out all my aliases, open it back up again, D, gel system. Yep, there it is. So that's really a great use for a profile, to sort of customize the environment. Either import some aliases or just create some new aliases that you're going to be using a lot. The trick, of course, is to remember that if you're running the remote signed execution policy, that profile becomes a potential security risk. So if you're in a production environment, be sure to keep it to the all signed security policy and just apply a digital signature to your profile. I've mentioned a couple of times, sort of in passing, that some of PowerShell's commands work differently based on what other functionality you've added to the shell. For example, if I run get command, I'm going to see a list of all the commands, including any that have been added into the shell. Let me kind of give you a way to visualize this. Let's minimize the shell for a second. And I'm going to open a blank Microsoft Management Console. This console is, well, it's pretty useless. There's no functionality built into it. It's similar to PowerShell. PowerShell actually does have functionality built in, but it's kind of core functionality. Functionality like adding and removing snap-ins. So if I decide to add the Active Directory users and computers snap-in, and the ADSI edit snap-in, and let's see, the disk management snap-in, and how about the DNS snap-in? I'll add all those snap-ins, and now I've got a fully customized shell that has all the different administrative functionality I need to do my job. I can save this console, load it back up anytime I want, and all these snap-ins will be pre-configured. Well, PowerShell works the same way. Get PS snap-in shows me the snap-ins that are loaded into the shell. These are PowerShell snap-ins. They're specific to PowerShell. I've got 5 of them that are providing the core functionality that we've been using all along. If I run get PS snap-in-registered, it'll show me all of the snap-ins that are installed on my computer but not currently loaded into the shell. And there's one called Quest Active Roles AD Management. Let's add a PS snap-in, and we'll add Quest Active Roles.AD Management. Get PS snap-in to see if it's there. There it is. Now let's run a different version of get command. Just show me the commands from quest.activeroles.ad management. Those are the commands that were added by that particular snap-in. Here's one: disable QAD user. Help disable QAD user. Even tab completion still works with these snapped-in commandlets. And there's the help for that snapped-in commandlet. So once a commandlet is snapped in, it's just like it's always been in PowerShell, and it works with everything else. Here's the trick again, though. Close the shell, reopen it, and get PS snap-in. And there's no Quest Active Roles AD Management. What do I have to do to make sure that that particular commandlet is always available every single time I load the shell? Well, I've got a couple of choices. Obviously, the first choice is to go to my Documents folder, open up my profile, and put the add ps snap-in command in here. Save that, and from now on, every time the shell runs, it'll execute this command. Again, I need to keep in mind that I should digitally sign this in a production environment because I'll be running the all-signed execution policy in a production environment. There's another way, though, aside from the profile, that you could do this. Start by loading all the snap-ins that you want in the shell. Add ps snap-in quest.activeroles.ad management. Confirm that they're actually loaded. Oops, get ps snap-in, not ps drive. Okay, it's loaded. Export console, and I'll call it myconsole.psc1. The file name extension doesn't really matter, but the standard file name extension for a PowerShell console file is psc1. Let's get a directory listing. There it is, myconsole.psc1. Now there's no import console command. We type get command, everything with console, and we see that export console is the only one. So how do I use that console file now that I've got it? Well, let's go down to the Start menu here and right-click this PowerShell shortcut and look at its properties. Okay, it's running PowerShell.exe. Okay, interesting. Let's come over here and run PowerShell.exe/?. Lots of different command line parameters, including one called -ps console file. So I can modify my snap-in to say -ps console file c myconsole.psc1. That will load the shell with that console file, and that console file tells it what snap-ins I want loaded. Very much like the MMC console file that I created, which tells the MMC what snap-ins I want to appear in the console every time I load it. Now, because I've already put this snap-in add into my profile, I'm not going to modify the shortcut. Instead, let's just close the shell, reopen it, let the profile do its job, get ps snap-in, and there it is. So it actually did load from my profile. So you've got a couple of ways that you can have the shell customized to do whatever you want and have whatever functionality you need every single time you load it up. In this nugget, we looked at Commandlets, ps snap-ins, aliases, and help. We started with aliases and commandlets, which are the really core components of Windows PowerShell's functionality. We looked at get command, which is a way that you can find all the commands that PowerShell has available for you. We learned how to ask Windows PowerShell for help, and we learned how to read that help once we got it. We learned about parameter prompting, which is how PowerShell makes sure that any required parameters of a command are always included. We learned all about aliases, how to create them, share them with other people, everything. We learned about ps snap-ins, the way that PowerShell adds both ps drive providers and commandlets into the shell to extend the shell's functionality. And finally, we learned about custom consoles, which lets you create your own PowerShell console that has all the snap-ins you might want. And we also looked at how profiles can be used to give you sort of a similar customized shell experience. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.